Hello and welcome to the first ever Twist My Arm PodCon. I want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out. Anyone that's listening to the PodCon podcast, thank you for checking it out. We floated around the idea of doing a convention a few months back. And here we are doing it now. We wanted to all get together in our network, in the Twist My Arm network. We all wanted to get together and help other indie podcasters that may be struggling with certain aspects of podcasting and just kind of give a little bit of our experiences, a little bit of our advice on how we handle certain situations or how we do certain things, just to, maybe put a little bit of perspective out there and help a little bit if we can. You can find anything Twist My Arm, www.twistmyarmpodcast.com. We got a bunch of shows to check out there, but we're going to save every plug for later on in our Q&A event late, and it's the last segment of the con. So this is the first segment, first of the day, first of four. We're starting. It's called Edit Out the Pain. We're going to be talking all about editing and softwares and microphones and all sorts of things that might help you get your podcast sounding really good. Joining me for that, good friend of the network, his name is Shawn. He is from the podcast Cheapseat Reviews. A lot of fun over there. I was on one of those shows. What movie did we talk about?
We did one of the the third of the new Star Wars movies,
the Star Wars.
Or not the new Star Wars, the prequels,
Yeah, that's what it was, of course. But yeah, definitely check out Cheapseat Reviews if you ever get a chance. But Shawn here he's a bit of an engineer as far as I know. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience as a engineer / podcast editor?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for hosting this event. Thanks for thinking of me and having me on. This is very cool. I've nearly never done anything like this, so I'm very excited. I graduated from college with a degree in recording engineering. Back when you had to go to school to learn how to record and do engineering, now you just learned on YouTube. But I have a 4-year degree in it, and from there, I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, and made TV shows and movies. So I was the audio editor. I did all the post work for a dozen or so commercials and some radio commercials, TV commercials, and a couple of TV shows, or the pilot of a show. And then once that pilot got picked up, I was the sound mixer on location. I didn't do any post work there. But I've been doing audio as a career for 15 plus 20 years now. Yeah, 20 years now. I've been doing the podcast for 7 years. And
Nice.
And it's been a lot of fun. And I also don't know if you can hear it out. There is a thunderstorm happening right now. So I don't know if the microphone's picking it up or not, but we'll just just keep on trucking and see what happens.
Yeah. Hopefully the internet stays up over there.
we haven't ever had issues so far. We haven't had issues yet of power outages or whatever. So shouldn't be a problem, but
perfect.
Yeah, we should be
fine.
Yeah,
it sounds like you have a lot of really good experience, a lot of good knowledge to share. I'm a self-taught person. I'm a YouTube graduate for sure. My dad really helped me with a lot of my sound engineering stuff. He went to school for all that, and I kind of just rode his coattails a little bit. So what I have learned, I've taught myself, and I'm sure a lot of things that I have are way different than things that maybe you would do, like procedures wise. So it'll be a lot of fun to kind of go through all that stuff. One thing about today, since it is PodCon, it is a special event. It is an all afternoon event. This first segment is about editing. Next segment at 2:00 is with Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable talking about building a fan base. And the third segment is Aaron and Pixie and I talking about being a better host and interviewing. And then the last segment's a Q&A for everyone to come and hang out. Each one of these rooms is going to be different. So once we're done here, you're going to want to head back over to our YouTube page and go on to the next live video that's starting. That's how we're going to kind of do this. And also for those of you that are in our live chat right now, if you put a comment in there, we have a a fun little PodCon gift box to give away at the end of the show. So leave us a comment in the chat here, and you'll automatically be entered in to win the gift box. There's a T-shirt, there's some stickers, there's a really cool pin. There's a bunch of good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this whole editing thing. First things first, Shawn, why do we care so much about editing?
Well, that's a very loaded question, and one that could take a long time. Simply put, we like editing because I think personally, people who are consumers, right? All of our listeners are consumers. They are accustomed to a certain level of quality when they consume what they're wanting to consume, right? TV shows. If people still listen to terrestrial radio, I don't know. I do. I know, but I'm old.
I
But
do.
even even XM radio and things like that. There's a certain level of quality that's expected, and so as indie podcasters, we have to match that as best as we can with the equipment that we have, and a lot of times you just have to do it with editing. And I know there's that old joke about we'll fix it in post. Well,
That's a
there's a
real thing.
reason. It's a real thing, and there have been many occasions where I've said the wrong thing, or we just needed to cut a section out, and so that's why the editing portion of the show, or the process of the podcast, is so important. Is that you want to remove the stuff that you don't need. And sometimes you can go on a fun tangent, and tangents can be fun in the moment and maybe with a live audience, but maybe the podcast that you if you do both, live and recorded, maybe they don't need to hear about that time that you and your friend did the thing where only you and your friends know about, inside joke.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah,
that's
it's a lot
yeah.
of just cleanup, I feel like, in the editing process. You're cleaning out that dead air. You're just kind of making the microphones or your vocals sound a little bit crisper, so it's not so shrieky on the ears. There's the like you were saying, when you go on tangents, the segment jumping aspect of it. There's a lot of times that I've edited a show where we've talked about a segment, gone off on something completely different for 30 minutes and gone back to that original segment, and you cut that and put it together so it's just one big segment, and you don't have to worry about the jumping around and people getting confused and stuff like that. I know there's a few shows that I've listened to where I'm like, wait, when were they talking? What happened here? And then you gotta go back and whatnot. So editing for me is more just for personally, I like to make sure everything sounds good. I'm a big soundophile. Is that the right word?
Audiophile, I think, is probably
Audiophile. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. And that's mainly it. Being a musician, always wanting to have the best sounding stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. So in this editing process, we use what's called a digital audio workstation, DAW for short. And a lot of times you can get these things for free. A lot of times you can pay for them, but there's so many different options. I like to try all of them and just find what works best for me. I know that I use Studio One. I've used Audacity before. I've used Pro Tools. That's a little too professional for me. It was hard for my non-educated mind to grasp. So I stuck with the Studio One, but I know you use a different workstation. What are you using over there, Shawn?
So I currently use GarageBand, mainly because the Mac that I was given through work, and it's on there, it's free. So
Right.
I use it. I've used Studio One. I think Studio One is a fine tool. At this point, here's the thing. When I was learning how to do this stuff, there was basically two editing softwares. There was either Pro Tools or no crap, I can't remember. Final Cut had a version. No, it wasn't Final Cut. Gosh dang it, I can't remember. That was 20 years ago. It wasn't
Right.
Audition. there was another, anyway, basically there was either Pro Tools or whatever the other one was. I can't remember. Somebody that's old enough will remember the other one. And so I learned Pro Tools in college and learned how to edit, um, and then did it again when I was down in Wilmington. And it's a tricky software, and Pro Tools is still the industry standard for recording musicians, right? When like Foo Fighters, when they released that album where they recorded it in their garage. No, just I don't Vegas something that doesn't sound familiar. I don't know. Anyway, the they were using Pro Tools, right? Because it's such an industry standard, but it's so expensive. I mean, indie podcasters, it's not an option. So I would suggest, definitely learning, Audacity is fine. I don't love it. It's fine. If you can get your hands on Studio One or GarageBand or Audition.
What's your biggest issue with? I mean, Audacity is the freest of free, and I feel like a lot of people use that. What's your biggest issue with Audacity?
I know
Not trying
Audacity.
to knock anything at all. I'm just
No,
saying, like, as far as
no. And again, to anyone listening, if Audacity is your comfort zone, then use it.
use it, absolutely.
Use what you like. I like GarageBand's interface a little bit better. It's a little bit more user friendly, in my opinion. It's got a couple other simple features that I like. For example, simply when you record your track, you can see your meters. In Audacity, you have to just record and then adjust and then either delete it or whatever. It's little things like that. GarageBand's got, I think, probably a better library of effects and plugins that you can use. Again, I haven't used Audacity in a couple of years because I haven't needed to. So I stick with GarageBand because, like I said, it's available to me.
Yeah,
So.
and it's what you're most comfortable with too. I mean, I use Studio One because it's what I'm most comfortable with. I really like the effects and the EQs that they allow you to use in Studio One, and the simplicity of it for me. And it might just be me. Maybe I'm just weird, because I know that Jesse has been like, this isn't simple. And I know Ricky and Bestflix has a problem with Studio One too. It is, I guess it's a little bit more challenging than, say, an Audacity or a GarageBand. But I feel like once you really get to learn it and the ins and outs of it and get everything running correctly, it can be a really good tool. There is a free version of that as well. If anyone ever wants to check that out, go to presonus.com and look for the Studio One artist version. Again, it's what you're comfortable with, though, and what you make your podcast sound the best with. So again, whatever you guys feel like, if you ever have any questions, you can always DM us on things too. I have a little bit less of a professional background on things. I don't know how Shawn feels about getting DM'd about things like that, but you can always DM me, and I can help you out with anything that I can. But moving on from that, so first you got your workstation, you got your tool to record everything, and then you're gonna set up. What's next? What do you say you need next to make sure your podcast is running, sounding good?
Okay, so I've had several discussions with people on Twitter about the quality of sound versus the quality of content. You're right, content over quality of sound, I guess. And I have always been a big proponent of, if what you have to say is interesting enough, people will listen, and I believe that. However, I'm also a big proponent of, you should do the things that you can within your budget to make your show sound as good as possible. Because I will fully admit this, there are podcasts that I couldn't make it past the first 10 minutes of because it sounded so bad, I couldn't do it. Now, I'm also kind of a snob when it comes to that thing.
I was just going to say I'm the same way, but we're kind of different. Like, our ears are a little bit more sensitive than most people, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's okay. But just know that if you have the ability to do, the little bit extra, then you might get me as a listener, or you, Josh. So if you get your DAW, your audio, your software, your mixing platform, I think that the next most important thing, if not the most important thing, is of course the microphone. I think you got to have a good mic. Now, if you're watching me on the YouTube or whatever on Facebook, I didn't mean to sound old by saying the YouTube, but if you're not just listening to this as a podcast, you'll notice that I have an EV RE 20 microphone. Not everyone can afford this.
It sounds beautiful though.
It does sound great, and I was gifted this microphone. This was a gift. Not going to get into the story, but I didn't have to fork over $230 for this microphone. So not everyone is that fortunate, and
Sure.
It does help that I work in the industry that I work in, working in AV and stuff. I'm afforded these kind of things. But this is a wonderful microphone. And one of the other really big advantages to this microphone specifically is this microphone, I don't need a P filter. I don't have to have a pop filter in front of it because it's built into the design of the thing. There you go. His little fly swatter there he's got there. Yeah, just like that.
So pop filters, you put them right in front of your mic, so you get rid of that sound.
Well, yeah,
I use covers for that. I use these little cover guys here.
Yeah. Anything will work. If you're not recording video, then use a sock. It doesn't matter. The purpose of it is to prevent air from physically hitting the diaphragm of the microphone. That's what you're trying to avoid. And that's so, I mean, it seems like such a small thing, but it's so important when you're recording, because just hearing that, I mean, think about it. If you go out to any kind of live event and you hear that through the speakers, it's so annoying, especially if not like a concert, but like if you're having to go to, like if work is making you go to a corporate thing or whatever, and you're hearing the wind across the microphone and all that stuff. It's so annoying. And it's the same thing with the podcast. You want your microphone and the experience to be as clean and as quiet as possible.
That can be jarring too. You know, if you're listening to a show and you're really into it, and all of a sudden you hear this big pop and it's like a bang in your eardrums, it's like, oh God, what was that? And there's so many ways of getting rid of those pops, even in the editing process as well. If you get those, I know I use a simple little cut and volume lower method. You know, I'll cut the track where the pop is and then just lower that volume on there, so there's still a bit you can tell what I'm saying, or the guest or whatever, but it's not as ear piercing of a pop. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That I feel like that's a really good point as far as editing goes. A lot of people, you know, when you're in that process, you're just trying to get it done, and you're just trying to make sure that the show is a certain amount, a certain length, and that the levels are good and that you can hear it. You know, it's those little things like the jarring pops and the weird whistles, and you know, sometimes you get a buzz. I know sometimes I get it when I touch my microphone, but you get a buzz, and there are ways to get rid of those via EQs and just volume control in general. And good microphones really do help with that. Shawn is saying he's got the really expensive mic over there. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I got a $80 AKG mic from Guitar Center here that sounds just fine. Yeah, it picks me up great. It's clear. And when I'm in that editing process, I can make just a couple little tweaks to smooth it out a little bit. But moving on from there,
before we leave this for just a moment, I set this up, so I just want to do this real quick, just for comparison's sake. So is again, as you're looking to maybe, if you're watching this thinking, you know, how do we start? You know, I don't have a whole lot of money. I have one of my co-hosts uses. So okay, sorry. Let me rephrase it this way. I know I get this question a lot. I have actually been asked this question several times. USB microphone over XLR microphone. This is an XLR microphone because you can probably see in the shot I have an actual mixer here, and I'm being attacked by an insect. This is great. And so I have an actual mixer because that's what I'm used to. I'm used to doing audio. So I think that there's benefits to both, and I don't think there's any kind of signal loss when it comes to USB. One of my co-hosts on the show has a USB microphone, and he sounds great.
Preference. It's about that preference.
It's about preference.
I feel like there's a little bit of a placebo effect too. I know that, like, my dad, for instance, won't ever use a USB mic because he is convinced that there's some sort of shortage that happens in a signal.
Yeah.
And he's much more comfortable plugging in an XLR cable to a board or an interface or something like that. So again, I think it's about preference. We have the same in our Marvel Canon Madness podcast. Our buddy uses a USB mic, and it sounds great.
Sure. But there's something else to be, not to belittle your dad's idea, because I'm kind of
no.
But like
totally fine.
But you're literally taking the XLR into a mixer, and then that mixer is going out into a
sending
USB
in a
interface.
USB. I have said the thing is, he's in an older generation of sound engineering that I couldn't ever even dream of being a part of. And we talk about our sensitive ears. That man, I don't even know. Something's wrong with his ears. But again, it's preference. And like I said, it's some of that stuff can be a bit of a placebo effect.
So now I'm talking on a Shure SM57. Now there's a difference, but
yes, there is.
Personally, I don't think it's bad. My EQ is exactly the same, so please don't think that I'm trying to EQ whatever. But my point is that this is an $80-ish microphone that you can get on eBay for, whatever. And they're brand new. They're like $90. But you can get one for $75, $80. And this is a great microphone to use, especially if you're going to go the route of a mixer and an audio interface like I have. I know that's extra gear, but I like the way of doing it because of I use sound effects in my show and other things. So I route everything through the board and then into my recording. So this is a way that I have to kind of track everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like the SM57s pick up a little bit more of a room dynamic, whereas the other ones that we have that are a little more condensed, they pick up they pick up more just the vocal that's right in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jesse asked the question, is my webcam mic good enough? No. No, I don't think so. Personally, no.
I personally don't think so either, but if that's all you got, that's all you got. And there are ways that you can, if you're using Zoom or like we use StreamYard here, you can actually just pull the audio track from that and you can doll it up as much as you want. I've used the webcam microphone before on accident, albeit, but I've used it. And although I had to do a ton of work on the post end to make it sound decent, it is still, if it's all you got, it's all you got.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I get maybe I'm going to come across as an asshole, but I personally would not do that. I would not use it. Again, I guess it depends on the show. Let me put it this way. Let me add some context. If you're doing a video show and part of the kitsch of your show is that you're doing different stuff and you're baking a thing or you're doing the whatever, and there's a lot of, it's acceptable to have room noise and stuff like that, then maybe that's okay. I would still personally maybe get a lavalier or something if you're doing something with your hand or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, I'm using my camera is a Logitech C930, which is a really good Logitech camera. I just muted myself. Sorry. And I think that the camera, the microphone on it is fine, but I just want you to hear the difference. Okay, so I'm now using the Logitech camera. So you listening, tell me, is this okay? I mean, like, again, I know I'm coming across as being kind of a snob with this, and I am. I'm going to go back.
Well, that's what we're here for, though. Like that's why that's why we're doing it, because we are kind of snobs and we like to show people the differences of things, and it is true. Like the mic is very different from a webcam to an actual microphone. I do want to, we're a little limited on time. This is, the convention, we have certain amounts of time. So I do kind of want to move on from the microphone aspect. Um, you were saying you use a mixing board over there.
Mhm.
I use a Focusrite 4 channel. Well, it's an 8x8 audio interface. So I have 8 different channels. Focusrites are probably the cheapest, best route to go as far as trying to get an easy setup. Jesse has my old no, sorry. Jesse has the same one that I had. It's a 2x2 mixer. It works just fine. It's got 2 mic inputs. You can use either 1/4 inch cables or XLR cables, and it, connects directly to your computer. Super easy, and most digital audio workstations will talk to your Focusrite almost immediately. Jesse's got the 4i4. Sorry, but those will they'll usually talk to your computer pretty quick. Sometimes you got to download different drivers. Always watch out for drivers. They are the bane of my existence a lot of times. But those are big things that I know people, they get this new interface, they get this new workstation, and they're like, nothing's happening. And a lot of times it's because you got to make sure to go buy that driver, jump into that driver, and adjust your settings so your computer can actually talk to things. Mac is a lot better with those. Apple and Mac computers it talks a lot quicker. A lot of times you don't have to have a driver on those kind of computers, but with PCs, you absolutely got to get those kind of things. So then we'll move on into the actual like editing process. A lot of people struggle with this aspect because it takes a lot of time. What would be some of your pointers as far as like how you cut things down and adjust your volumes and stuff? Is there certain settings that you can do with your program, and like, or do you just kind of just wing it?
Well, no, I wouldn't say I wing it. Definitely. There's a couple of things that I would always suggest that anyone does if they're going to have a podcast where they feel like they're going to have to edit a lot, and that's take notes. And I know that seems counterintuitive when you're trying to interact with an audience, like I'm trying to interact with you now, and you don't want to have your head down as you're taking notes. But taking notes while you're recording can help you later. For example, my show, we keep the show kind of PG-13. Sometimes, it happens. Sometimes an F-bomb slips out. It happens. So I
My
take
bad.
the note. I take you're fine. Believe me, I've had episodes where it was. So I take the note of I mark the time code
Mhm.
so that I know when to go back and edit, so I don't have to listen to the whole show just to edit out that one thing. And there's other notes that you can take while you're recording. I mean, GarageBand has this really great feature of you can take notes. There's a notepad on the
On there.
actual recording screen.
Yep. And I actually, in Studio One, I have little flags. So anytime
Mhm.
something happens in the show, I'll just go mark a little flag right there. I
Yeah,
don't have to write anything down. It just marks it, and I can go back and I'll know once I play it back. I'm like, oh yeah, that I need to edit that out, or whatever it was. But yes, taking notes is huge for sure.
yeah. Taking notes is good. Another thing I would highly, highly suggest, and this was actually, again, this was fun for me, but um, I'm a dingus when it comes to this kind of stuff, is record yourself, right? So let's say you get your microphone, you got your mixer or not, or USB, doesn't matter, and you're getting into the actual editing process. I would take a while, an hour, and record your intro, your outro, whatever you're going to say regularly, right? The things that you're going to say, and record it a bunch of
Every
times.
episode. Yep.
Yeah, and record it, and then try different effects, try different EQ. A lot of I know GarageBand, I know Audacity. I guess they probably have some. I know that Studio One has it. You can go in and create an EQ. Like for example, I can go in to GarageBand, and I can go down and under plugin add channel EQ, compressor, all these things, right? And I can do like an EQ, and it'll have one for vocal, vocal
Mm-hmm.
male, vocal female, whatever. Just pick one, and then and then, listen to it, and then pick another one and listen to it, and find something that works for you, for your voice, because
Yeah.
everyone's voice is different. And so, do you want your voice to have more low end, or you want it to have more of a high end, or more of the bright? Those are the things that you can do before you record your first episode, so that you can get that first episode sounding good, like really good. Because my first episode was terrible, and it
I
was
think
because
everyone's first episode is pretty terrible.
yeah. Yeah, and Jesse makes a great point. Presets are the best starting point. There's lots of different presets, especially, I mean, for me, once I've created that preset, every week when I open up GarageBand to record, I open the last week's file, delete the audio, save as, and then, yeah, there we go.
So
So,
basically, on my thing here, you can actually see my Studio One is picking up my microphone right now. It's great. This is an old Quest Me episode. I saved it specifically for the PodCon. As you can see, I have both my vocal tracks here. I have my track and Justin's track. It is labeled. I do have a separate file that has an intro that I have made with music and stuff behind it that I've saved, that I put on the beginning of all of my shows. Couple of them were different. Jesse's in a couple of them, and we'll mix and match things. But what you're talking about as far as effects, I have this entire row of effects here um, on the side that's all I did was I went and checked different things. You got your vocal section, and I just click and drag, and it'll actually bring up my little compressor box and my EQ, and I can adjust all these different things. And I just messed with it until I found the right thing that sounded the best. So um, I do agree. It's just testing. It's a lot of just
yeah,
experimental things, and just figuring out what you want it to sound like. So another point, I got a flag right here. That's one of the edits that I got to do. So on that section, I would go to that flag and I just kind of cut it right where I need to cut it and do what I got to do. So um, each digital audio workstation is going to be different. You just have to, again, find what's going to work best for you, and easiest for you personally, and then compare it. I like to listen to episodes and things that I make in the car. I feel like um, sending out my track to my phone or whatever, and then going out to my car and listening to it on the car speakers, I really feel like that gives me the best idea of what it's going to sound like. Now, that's a lot for music. For podcasting, I do headphones, because most people are going to listen to a podcast through their headphones. So what I like to do is, export my final track that I've done all my editing and stuff, and then go listen to it and see what it sounds like with those EQs, with those effects and all those things. Um, let's see. We got, yeah. And so another question I've gotten a lot is, do you actually have to master a track? Because there's a difference between exporting and mastering tracks. Would you say that for podcasting that you should master your tracks, or is it more just like bouncing them and making it sound okay?
I think it depends on the software you have. Mastering, another word people use is normalizing, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I think those are good to do if you have the ability to do them. Um, Pro Tools does it very differently, at least it used to, than some of the other softwares. GarageBand just kind of does it as part of the export. There's not really a true normalization, or not a mastering for the track. So when I export, it does its own normalization within the export. But I still have to do a lot of it myself. Yeah.
And I actually have a normalize audio button right through Studio One that once I
Yep.
click that, it'll make all the audio sound even.
Yeah, that's the point is that it compresses a little bit, so that if your track is hotter than Jesse's track, then it'll either bring yours down a little bit and
Correct.
Jesse's up a little bit to kind of match them out a little.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's important. If you can do it, you should do it. If you have the software that can do that thing.
And another thing, before I even knew what that normalize audio button was, I would just compare my tracks and get them separate. So this, if this one was low like that, I would just go find it and kind of raise it a little bit, and then take this one down a little bit to make it as even as possible with the vocals, with the tracks. But then I found this normalized audio thing, and it just makes it smooths it all out. So and you don't want to have, someone louder than somebody else. Like, you don't want to have someone screaming at you through the headphones, and then someone else talking so soft that you can't understand what they're saying. So one of those big things is just making sure all your volumes are the same. And if you notice that your tracks are smaller than the others, you probably want to adjust it to make sure that you're not overpowering your guest or your co-host or something like that. um what else you got for us here, Shawn? Any other tips, tricks, pointers? I'm getting I'm getting a little low on my notes over here. Uh-oh. Did I get lost? Did Shawn get lost? Am I the only one here? Oh no, Shawn got lost. I'm the only one here. That is okay. I can fill some time, I think. I think did anyone in the chat, did you guys have any other questions for us on the editing process? Um like I said, I'm using the Studio One. This is the Studio One interface, or sorry, not interface, the digital audio workstation. Um, very streamlined. When I start a new song, I actually have different settings for each different show. I have the MCM show that'll bring up tracks for each individual person, Quest Me SBI, all these different shows here. So if I pick a TMA show, um, I can actually I have everything preset here, so everything's good to go. I don't have to worry about testing my vocal tracks. Everything is brought down to a level that I like it at, and all I have to do is start. So Jesse asks, any other tips for making it faster? Uh, the best thing that I have is the note taking. Once I started taking notes, and I can't emphasize this enough, like notes and setting reminders on different things to go edit something, and to know where to go edit. A lot of times before, I used to listen to the entire episode for 2 hours and and edit as I'm listening to it. Over time, I find out that I can just, set a flag and make a note, and then just immediately go edit what I need to edit. Because at this time, all if you start out, with your settings all created and set, then all you have to do is make those cuts and those little tiny volume adjustments. Um, Handle multiple people during the podcast. Do you prefer multi-tracks to edit, or would you rather just pull one sound file? That comes from the Intrepid DM. Um, Man, I tell you, I I'm okay either way, but the best way and the fastest way to do it is to have one solid track. One reason that we use StreamYard is because we can just pull one single audio file that has everyone's vocals on it, and we just have to do a couple little cuts. Nowadays, with the upgraded StreamYard, we can pull each individual track. So if we need to make different edits, excuse me, if we need to make different edits on single tracks, we can do it that way, just by pulling it. I prefer the one track method, um, and just to anything else, honestly. And a lot of that has to do with teamwork as well. Whenever we're in a show, especially SBI, I know we've gotten really good about, if someone needs to talk, we don't talk over each other. We'll raise one finger to show that, hey, we have something to say. And we let that other person finish off what they're saying while we hold up our finger, and then Jesse will say, okay, Josh, you had something else to say. And so that makes it a little easier as far as the after effect, because you're not trying to edit out overlapping, and you're not trying to edit someone talking over somebody else. Those little tiny in show keys that you can do really, really help with all of your editing in the long run. So let's see. Any other questions? I don't have much else over here on that. I guess I just talk about PodCon a little bit more. We got up next. We're gonna have Jesse talking about basically building up your podcast, the best way to get as many followers as possible. Look, I don't want to toot horns or anything, but man, that Sudden But Inevitable show went from starting a Twitter in January to having over 1,000 followers in 6 months. That is incredible. And no, it wasn't, you didn't buy any followers or anything. It was all by hard work, dedication, and a lot of little things that Jesse will talk about. And you know, that's one of the biggest issues is building a brand, right? Building a fan base. So it's I trust a lot of what Jesse says on that stuff, because he did a great job building a brand for Sudden But Inevitable, and I can't be more proud of him for that. So I'm excited to hear his segment. After that segment, at about 3:00, we're gonna have Pixie from Next on Stage One podcast and Aaron from It's a Fandom Thing podcast talking about how to be a little bit better of just a podcaster all around, how to be a better interviewer, questions to ask, stuff like that. That's going to be great. Erin does all sorts of fun interviews on her show. Pixie does the same thing, and they have amazing shows. If you've ever listened to Next on Stage One or It's a Fandom Thing, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't ever listened to them, you need to get on it because it's great. Once again, anyone that's in any of the comments or chats, I might have to take anyone that's involved in the PodCon. Jesse, I don't think I can put you in the drawing for the shirt. We'll see how it works out. But anyone that's involved right now, in the chat, leave a comment on any of these segments, and you are automatically entered in to the drawing to win a PodCon gift box. It's going to have a PodCon 21 t-shirt. We're going to have some stickers. It's a Fandom Thing has a sweet new pin for its what is it, a Halloween pin, I think. She's definitely going to show that off in her segment, but it's going to be a fun little gift box. So make sure to leave a comment, share this with friends. If you know anyone that's an indie podcaster that's starting out and wants, a little bit of advice or something, share this with them and they can come on over to the PodCon and hang out. For now, we are going to take a little bit of a break before we start our next segment. So be sure to get on the YouTubes. All these segments are going to be going. So next segment, about 2:05 is when we're going to start the gosh, what is it? I forgot what he called it. It is building a loud, loyal audience with Jesse. Cameron was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. But Jesse will be great. I will also be in there, just kind of in the background, hanging out. But yes, we hope to see you here in a few minutes for the next segment of the show with Jesse. And thank you all so much for hanging out in this segment. It's a horror logo pin. Thank you. Horror, HORROR. Jeez, horror pin. But yeah, make sure to join us in our next segment with Jesse. It's going to start here in about 15 minutes. And thank you all so much for hanging out in the first ever TMA PodCon convention, PodCon 21. Yes. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you soon.